Hello and welcome to Brian360, my attempt at a YouTube channel. As you can see, I've dressed up again for a video. This is the Judas Priest British Steel shirt that I'm wearing today. Or is it the same day as the previous video and I just changed shirts? Doesn't really matter, I guess. Anyway, this video is a how-to video on how to not make rookie mistakes when you're filming with a 360 camera. I had about a week from the day I purchased it until our trip began in the Bahamas, and I put everything on automatic mode and thought just waving a camera around would capture everything. It's a 360 camera. It's supposed to capture everything. It's wonderful. I found out the hard way that I was wrong, and my family found out the hard way. We had to go back to a fort twice to record some things that I messed up. The first point in this video is how to use a selfie stick properly. I had never owned a selfie stick till I got my 360 camera, so it's pretty simple. Most people will watch this and say, thanks for wasting my time, you idiot. But I thought it was kind of amusing when I watched my videos again and realized I need to go redo these. My family was less impressed. Anyway, so this is mostly for people who are interested in 360 camera use. I point out the mistakes, I point out some of the fixes, especially the end video or the end segment where I'm talking about using the software to improve what your camera didn't capture because you're not a good enough cameraman. So watch these if you're interested in 360 videos, or you just want to laugh at a guy who obviously didn't know what he was doing. Thanks very much for watching. Take care.
My first 360 video mistake is well demonstrated as we wander through the straw market and then later on Bay Street in downtown Nassau. Can you guess what the problem might be? That's right, perspective. I am not 8 feet tall, so why am I recording my video as if I am? Maybe it's because I'm walking around with a selfie stick for one of the first times in my life, and I've seen other people do that, so why not do it like them? I also wanted to keep my head out of my 360 videos. I know what I look like. I don't need to see myself. Unfortunately, I recorded a lot of my first videos using this approach with the 8-foot tall perspective. As a guy in his 50s, God, there is one advantage. I can check my hair. I can reassure myself that I don't have any bald spots happening, so good for me. Getting back to the perspective thing, one of the reasons I wanted a 360 camera was so that I could watch the videos on my VR headset and kind of pretend that I was back in the moment, back on vacation with my family. Unfortunately, it looks like someone from the NBA is now walking with my family, and that's obviously not me. A few days later, we returned to the straw market, and I held the camera at the proper height. I can check the back of my hair, and good, no bald spots there. But it gives me that feeling like I'm actually back in the straw market and walking around, not on stilts or wearing boots that the guys from Kiss might have worn. This was probably an obvious bit of advice, but coming from a guy who had never owned a selfie stick until he got his 360 camera, I felt compelled to use the selfie stick, hold it above my head, proclaim to the world that I am now a selfie stick owner and 360 camera user. So, pretty obvious, but keep that in mind. We're now standing in the lobby of the lovely Atlantis Resort as I'm demonstrating my second 360 camera mistake. Can you identify it? That's right, it's a 360 camera, so why am I spinning around like a ballerina? I actually identified my mistake while I was recording this, and here it is.
I guess I don't really need to spin around.
Yes, why was I spinning around? I'm not sure. I felt compelled to do it. Just remember that the 360 camera captures everything. It is a 360 camera. If you want to change the view and reformat into a non-360 video, like I've done here, you can always just reframe using the same video that you took. That's one of the many advantages of a 360 camera. You don't need to be constantly worrying about where your camera's pointing, because it's pointing everywhere. Apologies if this has induced any nausea. I thought it was just kind of a cool view.
Okay, I'm sick of this thing already.
My son just demonstrated 2 things. First is that teenagers can be very mean. I assume he was talking about his phone and not my camera. The second thing is don't get too close to your subject. With your camera lens, you get a distorted fisheye view. With your heart, you just get pain. Sweet pain. When I go to a museum, or Fort Charlotte in this case, I like to take pictures of the displays so I can go back and read them at my own pace. If you're one of the 7 people on the planet who do this as well, this tip is for you. You are using a 360 camera, not a magic wand attached to a selfie stick. I was following my family and the tour guide, trying to keep up with them, so I was recording as quickly as I could. Now, the lighting conditions are somewhat to blame, but it's haste and improper use of the 360 camera, hoping that I would be able to go back and read these at a later time. Even if I were to pause these right now, they are grainy and horrible. Going outside with better lighting does improve the situation. I'm caught up with the tour group now. They haven't taken off on me. They're about to leave me now. Oh, no, there is my wife's elbow. Good, she has not taken off. So the text is a little bit better here, but still not amazing. So how to fix this problem? Well, you announce to your family, hey guys, who wants to go back to Fort Charlotte? After they've stopped groaning, you get in the car and you go back to Fort Charlotte a couple days later. So getting much closer to the text, slowing down is very important, and also panning over the display helps out so I can read these later. Sure, a couple of those pictures were a little grainy, but I'll blame the lighting conditions on that. So if I wanted to, I could pause this video, read this with no problem, and get the most out of my trip to Fort Charlotte. As an aside, I told the family it would take about 20 minutes to record all this again. It took about 40. They stayed in the car while I went and recorded it. Oh well, I'm sure they had some quality family bonding time without me. Keep the camera about 30 centimeters or a foot away from your subject. Hope you have good lighting. And take the time to slowly pan across the display, and all should be good. Right? Well, not always. Here we are at the Pirates of Nassau Museum. I say we, it's just me at this point. My family has left. They're waiting for me outside. I'm trying to capture the text in these last few displays, and things aren't going too badly for the cards at the front. They're fairly clear. I can read what I want to. All good. However, I have the physical limitation of the glass case that is going to make things a little difficult for getting that last card. It says something about Queen and flintlock pistols, but that's all I can make out. This is zoomed in as full as I can on the digital zoom, and it's not going to get any better than this. Oh well, you don't win them all. Here I am at the cenotaph on Parliament Street in downtown Nassau. I've always had a keen interest in military history, so I wanted to film this video and get it right. Unfortunately, the rookie 360 camera user in me failed once again. Depending on where you are in the world, cenotaphs will recognize different wars. In Canada, where I'm from, cenotaphs generally recognize the First World War, the Second World War, the Korean War, and peacekeeping efforts. This cenotaph in the Bahamas recognizes the First World War and Second World War, as well as something listed on this plaque, which I missed, would have completely missed if I hadn't gone back to fix my problem. I'll get to that in a minute or so when I talk about the fix. The bottom plaque on this side of the cenotaph is a dedication to those who served during the First World War. On this side of the cenotaph, the plaque lists the names of those who died in the Second World War, 1939 to 1945. And you can make out the names fairly well. The lighting is good on this side, so I'm happy with what I was able to capture. This side is a dedication to those who served in the Second World War, and you can make out the inscription. The lighting is fairly good on this side, but there's a bit of shadow now, thanks to a tree that's blowing in the wind. And it is obscuring the text a little bit, but you can still make it out. This side is where the real problems are. The names can be read quite clearly if you're there in person, but it looks flat. The left and middle columns, you cannot read any of the names. These are the names of those who died in the First World War. It's important to me to get these names, and when I saw this on my laptop later on, I was very disappointed with the result and knew that I had to go back to the cenotaph to fix the problem. Much like my trip to Fort Charlotte, I returned to the cenotaph to correct my mistakes from before. This time, the family dropped me off at the curb and drove around for a few blocks while I fixed my mistake. I said I would get back to this plaque when I fixed the problem that made it largely illegible in the first attempt at recording the cenotaph. This plaque is dedicated to 4 sailors who died on the line of duty in 1980 when their ship, the HMBS Flamingo, was attacked by Cuban military jet fighters after the ship had arrested 2 Cuban vessels that were fishing illegally. Now that I can read it, I learned a little bit of history, and I thought it was a very touching addition to the cenotaph. The bottom plaque, again, dedicated to the individuals who served in the First World War, 1914 to 1918. This attempt, you can read the inscription much more clearly than before. So it's getting closer to the plaque, taking the time to pan across it. The lighting is much better today than it was the previous day, so that certainly helps with the legibility of this plaque. That's a very nice saying. I've never seen that one before, so it's important to me that I got that and recorded it. We head over to the side where the names of those who died in the Second World War are listed. This wasn't a problem with the first attempt at recording this. The conditions were pretty good as far as light goes. This time I got a little bit closer, took my time panning across from top to bottom, and it's a much better version than the first one. All the names are clear and legible. Here is the back panel of the cenotaph, dedicated to those who served in the Second World War. Lighting is a little bit worse this time than it was in the previous attempt, but by taking the time to scan across, to get in closer with the camera, everything can be read. And again, this is another very nice saying dedicated to those who died in the Second World War. It still has that kind of washed out appearance, and it's probably a reflection of the lighting, the dark background, the dark material that the text is on, but it's still fairly legible for the most part. Here is the panel that gave me the most problem last time, and it's still giving me problems, as you can see. The lighting is better, and some of the names can be made out, and I'm getting closer to the plaque, taking my time to scan from top to bottom, but it's still not great. You can kind of read things off to the side a little bit better than the spot on the plaque that's directly in front of the camera. And that has an issue to do with the side lighting of the raised lettering. Instead of filming for a third time, I wanted to see if there was a way that I could fix this. Within the Insta360 Studio program, there is a way to improve some of the contrast and lighting. Now, those problem areas are still there. You go to Color Plus and crank up the strength to 100, and you see how that gets a little brighter. It does help out, especially in those problem areas that were really bad. Still not perfect, but it's an improvement over what I had. Here is that plaque again, this time with the Color Plus set to 100. And it's much easier to make out a lot of the names. It's still not great, but it is definitely an improvement over what I had. And if you were to scroll through this slowly and squint a little bit, maybe you can make out all of the names. It's better than what I had, but still not great. I wanted to see if there was a little bit more I could do to make this a better video. I am using Corel VideoStudio to edit these videos, and regardless of which software you choose, there is probably an option to change the brightness or contrast. So here is my third attempt fixing this video, this time with the brightness cranked up. It is overexposed. It looks like it's a very, very, very sunny day, but I finally achieved the goal of being able to read all of the names on this plaque. It's not pretty, but it worked. And this brings me to my last bit of advice, especially if you are a rookie 360 camera user like myself. You will have lots of failures. God, you will. But if you persevere and play around with it a bit, maybe your family gets to go to Fort Charlotte again and you get the video that you want. Keep filming and have fun. Hey, wake up. The video's done.